Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, Vince Coglianese.
Hey, good afternoon. 4:06 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, Stephen Camarado will be with us from the Center for Immigration Studies. That's at 5 o'clock. And then at 5:30, Laurel Libby, a state representative from Maine, will talk to us about her governor attempting to allow men to continue to cheat in women's sports. It's ahead on the Vince Coglianese Show. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Big changes going on at the Federal Bureau of Investigation. On Friday, Kash Patel was sworn in as the FBI director by the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. Here he is making his initial statements on Friday.
Look, I know the media's in here. And if you have a target, that target's right here. It's not the men and women at the FBI. You've written everything you possibly can about me that's fake, malicious, slanderous, and defamatory. Keep it coming. Bring it on. But leave the men and women of the FBI out of it. They deserve better.
Kash saying that he is bringing accountability culture to that agency.
I promise you the following. There will be accountability within the FBI and outside of the FBI. And we will do it through rigorous constitutional oversight starting this weekend.
And his team is already growing. Yesterday, the news that our colleague here on WMAL, Dan Bongino, is about to become the deputy director of the FBI. Dan, during his shows today, talked about the honor and how it came to pass.
President, Attorney General Bondi, and now director, gosh, that sounds good to say, FBI director Kash Patel offered this role.
And he said he's proudly taking it.
I'm going to accept the role proudly as the deputy director, the number 2 spot at the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
What kind of task do these men find ahead of them? Joining us now to discuss, Chris Piehota is a retired FBI executive assistant director and the author of Wanted, the FBI I Once Knew. Chris, good to have you on the show, sir.
All right. Hey, thanks for the opportunity to visit with you and your audience today.
Thank you for doing this visit. I appreciate that. So what do you make of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino taking these important roles?
Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate both of them, Director Patel and Deputy Director Bongino, on their leadership of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I think they both got a tough hill to climb, since both of them are going to be not only in learning mode about how the FBI conducts its investigations and operations and the business side of the FBI, but also in rehabilitating the FBI's image, looking at the FBI's operational practices, and restoring a culture, as Mr. Patel said, of accountability and transparency for the American people.
Yeah, they've
got a lot of work ahead of them.
The thing that both of these guys have in spades is definitely their experience working within the legal system and in law enforcement, and a clear understanding of the abuses at the hands of the FBI. But what you're pointing to, Chris, is that they're not FBI guys. They were not on the inside. They don't know all the inner workings. So it's going to be, how much of a challenge will that pose to both of these men as they lead this agency?
I think it's going to make things a little tough for a while, because they're going to be in, again, learning mode.
Yeah.
They're going to be in leading mode, and they're going to be in rebuilding mode all at the same time. So it's going to be a tough road, and that's why it's important for them to build a good senior leadership team around them from either inside the FBI or outside. But they got to have a team with them while they're doing other duties that are required of their roles.
Yes.
Somebody's got to run the organization.
Right, because if you don't have good visibility on the organization and understand its inner workings, it can grow out of control really quickly. So, I mean, there's got to be they've got to want to have, like, maybe former guys, like guys who can just be Sherpas to help navigate the corridors there at the Justice Department.
That'd be a great thing, because a lot of folks who would be willing to go back and help, because, folks like myself and others that are kind of we're just stunned at what the FBI has become over the last several years. But you come in, you're not looking for a DC career.
Yeah.
You come in, you help for a period of time to get things back on their feet, and you help mentor some of the up and coming leaders into the new cultural expectations of, Director Patel and Deputy Director Bongino.
What do you think priority one should be, Chris Piehota, for these guys as they take this role? I mean, you have a lot of choices about what you focus on. You hear from Kash Patel and Dan Bongino both indicating that they are very focused on catching criminals who have been savaging the country. What should their priorities be?
Well, they can't get involved in day-to-day operations. They have to maintain their strategic leadership of the organization. And you've heard the euphemism, they're trying to turn a battleship, right? And they can't be down paddling alongside the battleship. They got to turn that battleship. And what they have to do is let the FBI do what it's good at. The FBI is the best there is at finding criminals and interdicting crime and national security threats. What they have to do is give them a principled leadership environment that will allow them to do that again. And they have to give them the top cover that they need and the support that they need. And the FBI will take care of its business. They also have to do that while instilling a new sense of culture and practices for the organization. So I think the FBI, given an opportunity, they're going to go out there and find all those criminals.
Yes.
It's just that they haven't been able to do it for the last couple of years.
But they do need a team, even if it's not them personally, who has a granular understanding of the operations of the FBI, because we've seen a lot of the abuses happen at the hands of the FBI, of course, what you've been concerned about, whether it's people lying on FISA warrants in order to obtain them, whether it's like just mysteries that continue to prevail, like who is Thomas Crooks? Why did he shoot the president of the United States on July 13th of last year? Why did we never get clear answers on the Vegas shooting, one of the deadliest shootings in American history? There are kind of like countless, the pipe bomber, the January 6th pipe bomber. What is the deal with that story? There are a million important things that may seem granular, but that do require some transparency from that agency.
Agreed. And I think that will be one of the first steps in restoring some of the trust and confidence is to talk to the American people. You can tell them what's going on. And granted, there are certain operations and things that aren't for public consumption. Everybody understands that. But I do think that the organization could be a little more informative with the American people about circumstances, what's going on, what the FBI is doing to protect our communities, and just have that dialogue, not only with the American people, but with our national leadership. So I think that's an important first step in how they're going to start restoring some of that confidence.
Also, at a high level, it does seem, according to FBI agents we've talked to, Chris, that we need to reallocate some resources back to things that are actually important and not to punishing political opponents of the left, because you had a lot of agents, whistleblowers, who were reporting that agents were taking off of child predation cases in order to focus instead on January 6th of all things. So at a high level, it definitely seems like we need a reallocation of resources quickly.
Absolutely. And I think when Deputy Director Bongino and Director Patel get their feet on the ground, that's one of the first things they should be doing is looking at, like I said, the operational practices of the FBI. Where are they dedicating their time and resource against what prioritized set of threats and priorities? That's what's got to happen immediately so they can realign programs accordingly.
Chris, also, can you give us a better understanding of these jobs? It does seem like the FBI director sort of takes all the slings and arrows, being the head of the organization. But as I understand it, it's the deputy director, now going to be Dan Bongino, who runs the day-to-day operations of the FBI. It sounds like a very intensive job to be deputy director.
Yeah. Well, the FBI director, as a political appointee, he is the strategic leader, and he is what I call the protector of the FBI brand. He is that person that represents the organization at home, abroad, with our state, local, and federal law enforcement partners, as well as, in very high-level governmental discussions. So that role, he does a great service to the organization as that front man, so to speak. The deputy director is the operations chief of the organization. All 55 field offices with all their investigations and operations report into the deputy director and his management team. So that is a high-pressure, high-impact job. And then below him, now I don't know if they're going to refill the executive assistant director roles, but those are the people. The FBI was carved up into 6 branches, and those executive assistant directors ran each one of those branches day to day with the deputy director to make sure that the FBI was doing everything it could to, again, combat national security threats and crime problems on behalf of the American people.
And that's the role you once held, FBI Executive Assistant Director.
That's correct.
Okay. So on the transparency front, Chris, it does seem to me that if you want to increase trust in the FBI now, one way to do that would be to put people in who have sort of unimpeachable histories of trying to tell the truth about what's going on in that agency. I mean, the fact that Cash and Dan are specifically the ones who are taking this job, if they come back and they tell me, hey, that January 6th pipe bomber, like for real, the FBI did actually look for him and they didn't find him, and it's still kind of a dead end. We don't know where this guy is. I'll believe them. And this could go a long way towards increasing some of the trust in that agency.
I agree, and they have no reason to be untruthful with the American people at this point, right? As long as the people understand that if there are certain investigative operations and certain, I'll say, investigative steps being taken, the FBI has to rebuild that political and personal capital with the people to say, hey, we'll be back with you shortly. We can't divulge these things because then we won't catch the bad guys. Yeah. And I think people forget that, some of these investigations take a while and we get hypnotized by the TV 1 hour, we solve all the crimes type of things and, all that. But some of these investigations are months and years long. And I think that's where people lost confidence in the FBI, and we have to gain that back.
Yeah, and that's a mess of the FBI's own making. So right now, I expect the FBI to err more on the side of transparency until we trust them again. And so that does create that tension that you're talking about.
Agreed. And I'll tell you one thing, Vince, and I wrote about this a little bit in my book, but I think there are three things that Director Patel and Deputy Director Bongino really have to look at on a strategic level. They have to look at a proper alignment between three things. One, they have to look at what the FBI is required to do by law, by regulation, by policy, statute, whatever their official authorities are. What are they required to do? The next step is they have to look at what should the FBI be doing to combat national security threats and crime problems. They're not always the same as what they're required to do versus what they should be doing. And the third part of it is what is expected of the FBI by the American people and our national leadership. They have to look at those three areas and integrate them so that they can cover the scope of the FBI's service to the country. If they only focus on what we're required to do by, I would say, by law, regulation, statute, policy, then you get what I call a compliance environment that is low performing and it brings mediocrity. And the FBI's mission is too important for that.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, they got big jobs ahead of them. Chris Piehota, thank you, retired FBI Executive Assistant Director and author of Wanted, the FBI I Once Knew. Sir, nice to talk to you today.
Hey, pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Great to have you with us. It's 4:20 now, WMAL Traffic and Weather. Your call.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
All right, let's see. Oh, our friend Donna calling in from Frederick, line 1. Hello, Donna. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hello, Vince. Oh, what a happy day it is indeed. I think Dan, he amazes me. First of all, I remember months ago when he said if he was called to serve, he would do just that. And that's amazing to me. And it's a very selfless decision. It's a love of country. God bless him for it. And I want to say to all
well, he's putting a lot on the line. I'm sorry, Donna, if I can jump in and just accentuate the point you're making.
Sure.
He's putting a lot of his life on hold. He's built a pretty meaningful media empire around him. They've got a big thing going, and he's decided he's going to put all of that on hold and go into the government. And for a job that it seems to me like it's a pretty thankless one. Deputy Director of the FBI. He's got a lot of work ahead of him. And that is a sign, I think, of decency and sacrifice. And he's doing it. And that's the kind of thing, too. I heard him talking about it today. His family, he has to deal with all of this with his family. He's got these 2 daughters and his lovely wife. And they, they've got to navigate a really difficult environment where they're probably not going to see him very often as he undertakes this mission. So he's putting a lot on the line here, Donna.
Absolutely, and it takes a certain person, and, it's like having President Trump. We're blessed to have him. I think the same thing applies with all the people that he surrounded himself with that are doing what is so long overdue. And I'm sorry for the people in government who are struggling with trying to send bullet points in. Whatever's blocking you, I bypass it, do an end run around, and get it to the Trump team if I want to still have a job. It's not that hard to write down a job description. I'm sorry. And, I've been, for all the years I've been married, we've done work where, when Obama came in, when Clinton came in, we were cut with nothing, with no notice. And we had to scrounge and find other work. So other people can do it too. And in reality, there'll be more jobs available in the private sector. So they have that to look forward to.
I hope you're right about that. I think you're right about that too.
Yeah.
And by the way, you have all these state governments who are trying to crawl all over the availability of federal workers now. You heard it in Virginia today. Governor Youngkin has hundreds of thousands of jobs he's trying to fill. And he's like, please, please, please. By the way, which lines up pretty nicely with what President Trump is trying to do. He wants to cut the federal workforce by about 300,000. And that means there's a ton of jobs available already in Virginia, Governor Youngkin reports. So that side of it definitely matters. These are real people with real jobs. But what they want to do is just make the government more efficient. And you can't throw a fit if somebody asks you just to prove that you're alive. It's like the bare minimum. Donna, thank you. A fixture not only on this program, but also on, I hear you all the time on Dan Bongino, Donna, and really grateful for your call today.
Thank you, and God bless Chris. He did a great interview with you. Hopefully they'll get some good FBI guys in there.
Oh, yeah. No, Chris was great. That was really insightful. Let me see. Speaking of Chris, I've got Chris and Marshall on line 4. Chris, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
It's getting exhausting waking up with a grin from ear to ear every day.
It does hurt.
I'm just grinning like an idiot, man. Mm-hmm. It's just wonderful. I keep replaying that. Oh, you're going to get so tired of winning.
Uh-huh.
I see an opportunity. I see an opportunity here. If we can't get 6 hours of Vince. Maybe Vince can take the noon to 3, and Corey can take over from there until
Chris.
6.
You're a troublemaker, Chris. I appreciate the call, though. Look, I imagine how many radio hosts are getting phone calls to this effect all across the country today. Oh, you should be the guy. You know something? My attitude remains the same, which is I'm grateful that anybody lets me do this in any capacity at any time of day. I think that's a cool thing.
And if you were asked to fog a mirror, you'd probably say, okay, sure, here are my 5 points that fog the mirror.
I could fog a mirror. Yeah, that's about all I'm good for. Thank you, Chris. Mirror fogging. Yeah. It's cool. But boy, talk about the media industry is really something else, right? I mean, how many people are calling their agents today? Hey, what's going on with that 12 to 3 slot? We got to figure out what's going on here. My attitude is great. I don't even have an agent. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. Oh, I can talk to people? I can interview people? We can tell people what's going on? Yeah, I'll do that. Happy to do it every single day right here on WMAL. Stay with us. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 4:36 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, we're going to be joined from the Center for Immigration Studies by Stephen Camerata. We'll talk to him about all these illegals who have been arriving in the country. And President Trump's efforts to get rid of them. Also, Laurel Libby will be with us at 5:30, state representative from Maine, to talk about her crazy governor, Janet Mills, who is refusing to stop men from cheating in women's sports. And she says to President Trump, I'll see you in court. And he goes, yeah, I'll see you in court. That's ahead. You can join us today. 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Over the weekend, I was playing around with the artificial intelligence platform that Elon Musk has injected into X. It's called Grok. They've reached, I think Grok 3 is the current iteration of it. It is pretty amazing. Scary, in a sense, scary. But really incredible. A lot of promise and peril with this AI. I was tinkering with it this weekend because I saw some people reporting, and I think Elon Musk had posted it too, that you can actually create a computer game in under 5 minutes if you want to. You just devise it in your head, and then you can create it. But I didn't actually know It's been a very long time since I've done computer programming. Like a long time ago, I had learned how to use at its most basic level, like Q Basic, where you enter really simple commands to tell the computer to do something. And but I had learned some computer programming. And by the way, it's kind of a useful exercise to learn computer programming because it helps you understand logic, the way that things flow, and how you can and how to be precise about your syntax, about how you be precise about what things you choose. Otherwise, the whole computer program won't work. Every letter and every element that you put down, every character you type matters in computer programming. And if you mess it up, the program will fail. So you got to go back in there. It's just good. It teaches you discipline. It teaches you logic. It teaches you how to debug something. If something's not working, why isn't this working? Why is that thing appearing there? How can I move it somewhere else? These are all useful exercises. So I actually recommend for even like little kids, to the extent that you can do it, like get into some like rudimentary basic computer programming just to teach them logic patterns. It's helpful. And so this weekend I looked at Grok and I said, okay, let me see what I can do with this thing. And I straight up told the artificial intelligence, Grok, I said, I'd like to create a computer game, but I don't know where to start. I want to basically give you an idea, and I would love for you to give me a step-by-step breakdown of how to achieve it. And so the thing right away came back to me with a sample game. Grok called it Catch the Ball, and instructed me on how to add Python, a programming language, to my computer, how to access it, everything, what menu items to click, how to get to that location, how to create a text file. It gave me all of the code for the sample game. I copy and pasted it right into the text file, saved the text file, and then I executed it, meaning I ran the program, and within a second, boom, right on my screen. I had a catch the ball game. I could use the arrows on my keyboard, and I could use a little paddle. It's old school looking. It's a very simple looking game. And as a ball would fall, I would catch it. And then you get more points the more you catch the ball. It created it in moments. So I kept messing with it some more. And I brought my daughter in on it. I said, you got to check this out. I showed her what I was doing. And we started coming up with games together. We just kept random ideas. We had one called Trump's Wall Builder. Yeah, Trump's Wall Builder. And I just said, basically create a game where you're playing as a character. You're Donald Trump. And there is an endless wave of people trying to get across the border, and your character has to build walls up and down the border to stop the people from getting across, getting to the opposite side of the screen. Again, within seconds, Trump's Wall Builder was up and running, and there I was, a little character. Again, these were simple graphics, so they didn't have a picture of Trump. There's some more steps to do that. So instead, it gave me the letter T to represent Trump. That's him, and you just move it up and down the screen. And as all of these waves of people in the form of circles were coming directly at me, I was building walls. Boom, 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 walls, stopping them from getting across. It was Trump's Wall Builder. How cool is that? And you can do this with all sorts of things. I was sitting there thinking, I was like, man, there's like my kid does spelling tests and geography tests. She has all these things she has to come home and study for. I could come up with a game for her in under 5 minutes that includes all of the things she's studying. Like, here, play this game I just made for you. It includes all of your homework for this week, all of the concepts you have to study for that test you have coming up later this week. So it's cool. We're only beginning to get our arms around the way that we're going to be able to use all of this. And I have a cousin who's very, very proficient at coding. That's his line of work. And I was asking, I was like, have you seen this? And he's like, yeah, it's really amazing. It's really amazing what's achievable now. And you can code in more sophisticated languages too. Every so often when I was doing it, I ran into a problem. There would be an error. It was like line 14, missing something, whatever it was. So instead of debugging it myself, just going through and looking for the missing element and trying to just ham-fist my way through it, I just would copy the error and I would give it to Grok. I'd say, hey, Grok, there was this error, and here's the message. And then Grok would say, you're right. That is missing. Okay, I've produced the code again for you, this time with the missing element re-added. And boom, the game's working. Whatever it was that I wanted to make, working. Kind of neat. Really, really, really awestruck by all of that. All right. enough about that. Although they are using artificial intelligence apparently in this Doge operation, I've been telling you, which is cool. So all of this stuff about, like, how's Elon going to read 3 million emails? He's not. He's not. They're going to use AI. You know it. I mean, I haven't talked to anybody at the White House about this, but you know that that's part of this. They've been using analytics. They've been using intelligence systems to try and navigate through all of this. And Speaker Mike Johnson even saying today that he's pumped about all this. And he said that Elon's algorithms have actually exposed things that Congress has never been able to get access to. Congress for years has been asking for all sorts of information about the way the federal government takes your money and then spends it. Sometimes federal government, the Congress that is, rather, Congress is a part of the cover-up. They're enriching themselves or their friends. But you've got Speaker Johnson saying, actually, it's been kind of great. It's been great because now, for the first time, we're seeing things that we don't normally have access to thanks to these algorithms. Here's Speaker Mike Johnson today at an event talking about what's different now thanks to AI.
And the Congress, we could have oversight. The problem is, for decades, as we know, we haven't been able to do that job well, because even though we requested the data and requested the insight, it was hidden. How many of you know that bureaucracy was not forthcoming, right? They're not transparent. That's the whole point. That's the problem. That's the deep state we talk about. So they were hiding from Congress. We didn't know that USAID was funding drag shows in Peru or whatever, transgender operas in Colombia or whatever, It's madness. But Elon has cracked the code. He is now inside the agencies. He's created these algorithms that are constantly crawling through the data, and as he told me in his office, the data doesn't lie. We're going to be able to get the information. We're going to be able to transform the way the federal government works at the end of this, and that is a very exciting prospect. It is truly a revolutionary moment for the nation.
What a difference an election makes, It wasn't that long ago that we had the federal government compelling the social media companies. In some cases, they went along willingly because of their politics or under duress from the federal government to censor Americans down to a granular level for expressing views that the left disagreed with. If you wanted to say on Facebook for a very long time that COVID came from a lab in Wuhan, you were forbidden from saying that. You were banned. That message would be stopped. It would be suppressed. Its reach would be suppressed, meaning no one else would see it. You would be typing it into the void. And that was at the behest of the federal government. So now, how the tables have turned. The American people is rather than having the government employ algorithms on the American people, now the American people are employing algorithms on the government. Now you know about how they've been wasting money in Peru or in Colombia or any other country. This is an unusual situation, isn't it? Where these powers have been placed in your hands rather than be used against you. This is the proper relationship between the American people and their government. This is it. And so pretty neat to see artificial intelligence being used in this way. Is it going to be a little bit messy? Yeah, sure. But I'd rather the mess be on the government side than on the American people. That's what I'd rather have. So pretty cool. Pretty cool to see all this. One other thing about Grok. I'm not paid to support Grok or anything, but I do think it's neat. It's got this deep think feature that they've added to it. I'm not sure if it's available all over the place or not yet. Maybe they're slow rolling it out, but maybe it is. Either way, they have a feature called Deep Think. And it is not just a standard artificial intelligence query where you just ask a question, then it spits back an answer to you as if it's a human talking to you with a huge brain. It's deeper than that. I saw a sample of it. And as I tell you this, I don't have the final four in front of me right now. But I saw a sample of it, which is you basically could ask it, hey, generate a perfect March Madness bracket for me using Deep Think. Kind of fascinating. So how would it work? It's easy. I mean, if you just want to look at like the bookkeepers and come up with an answer, build a bracket that way, or if you just want to look at the actual rankings and say, well, the number one team is clearly going to the Final Four, I'll do that all the way through. Some people do that. Some people pick based on the color of the uniforms. That one's pretty. I like that one. It's going to go the farthest. And by the way, that frustrates the sports nerds when that works sometimes. How did she get that? Sorry, not to gender this entire thing, but that is sort of how it happens. But the Deep Think feature, it lets you, you can say, generate a perfect bracket for me to the extent that you think it'll occur. And the way it operates is amazing because you can watch its process unfold. So what it starts doing is it instantly says, okay, what are the team rankings? Boom, 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 boom. That's obviously the base question. And then it keeps going down the list. It starts looking at injury reports. It starts looking at every sports website it can possibly crawl to. It looks at the likeliness of an upset at a particular spot in the brackets. It generated, it took, I think when I asked for this, it took something like 10 minutes of processing, but it was going through every few seconds. It was boom, move it to another website, boom, move it to another website. And it's telling you what kind of research it's doing. It's summarizing its findings. It's telling you that it's about to change the nature of the research given what it just learned. And it's all happening, boom, 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 boom. Now, of course, we'll see as time passes how smart it is. But, I mean, think about the use applications. If you are trying to assess, let's say, the value of a company, as you try to make a decision, are you going to invest in them on the stock market? Are you going to purchase shares in company X? Well, asking for a deep dive into the entire repository of the internet to give you an assessment of this company and its activities and its likeliness for further growth, that's all there. That's all. I mean, and it's only going to get more crisp and better and more accurate, I think. And eventually we'll be able to do kind of a regression analysis where we can compare what did AI say about that thing? Did it actually occur? Is it sharper, more perceptive, better than some of the humans that do this for a living? We'll have clear answers about that over time. But it is amazing. It is an amazing time, and which is why it's so important that we don't let the bad people run it. Remember when Microsoft and OpenAI, when they were first coming up with this, I was reading them on the air. When at the very beginning, we asked it basic questions just to give it the old competency test. You kick the tires. What is a woman? You ask the artificial intelligence, and it would say, an adult human female originally. And then within a month or two, some lefty at OpenAI had noticed that it was giving actual answers, and so they started subverting it. Humans would interfere. The answers then became stuff like, well, people who think that they are women regardless of whether or not they're actually women. It got more and more insane. So stopping that is critical. It needs to reflect reality, not these left-wing fever dreams that have just caused so much trouble. It's 4:50 now, WMAL, traffic and weather.
WMAL, making sense of mainstream media because the double standard is real. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Okay, our buddy Jason in Kensington, Maryland is calling in on line 4. Jason, who I saw at CPAC, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello.
G'day, Vince. How's it going? It was a great couple of days, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was cool seeing you. Did you stick around for all of CPAC? Were you there for President Trump's speech on Saturday?
Actually, I couldn't because I had to work on Saturday. So, I had missed that one. But
Jason's working for a living.
It was great. But, I mean, this whole thing about these layoffs and these people whining about government jobs being lost and people's lives affected, well, none of these people were speaking up when we were getting cancelled or losing our jobs because of the vaccine mandate. They had no sympathy for anyone who, like you said, questioned any of the authorities about look at the poor guys in the military and the hospitals. I mean, they were mandated to have these shots and they'd lost their jobs. I mean, so I have no sympathy for these people at all if they were the ones screaming that we needed to get the vaccine to keep our job.
Yeah, and I'm talking in that case specifically about the media's role in all of this. There was no legacy media panic over firing federal employees who refused to get the jab. And you and I both know what that was, Jason. That was a political filtering mechanism. It was not actually designed to improve anybody's health outcomes. It was entirely designed to force compliance with a left-wing political ideology. And then they fired people who didn't want to play along. And the legacy media was rooting on the destruction of the people who were fired. And now they're coming at us like, oh, it's really what a horrific situation that someone has to send a proof of life email to the American people. It's like, it's enough, isn't it?
Yeah, like spare me, and the thing is too is like you saw what happened in Australia, how bad it was there, and having not getting the vaccine was somehow attributed to being a Trump supporter. I mean, it was just so stupid that the whole political alignment with like who had a vaccine and who didn't.
Yeah.
It was some sort of a party.
Australia was an eye-opening situation. I just remember those images of Australians being held.
Yeah.
They were detained, held in this remote concentration camp containment area, and then they were told they're not allowed to walk across the painter's tape that was put in front of their doors, or else they'd be arrested. That's how crazy things got. We need to remind ourselves of that quite a bit, I think, from time to time. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate the great call. As always, good to see you at CPAC. Coming up, we'll talk to the Center for Immigration Studies, Stephen Camarata, and Laurel Libby is a state representative from Maine. She has some thoughts on Governor Janet Mills encouraging men to keep cheating in women's sports.